Hey everyone, welcome back to the Toss. Big episode today. A lot of issues going on with England cricket, which a lot of that negativity stems off the field with all the news which I'm sure you've seen with Stokes and Atkinson in a nightclub after the game. Despite having a big win against New Zealand beforehand, which the positivity should be around, they have gone and ruined it all as always, which is what it seems to be with English cricket at the moment. Going to talk also about India's win against Afghanistan, keeping their Test cricket momentum going, the Women's World Cup, which is coming up, and the Football World Cup a little bit as well, which at time of filming is meant to start tomorrow. So yeah, let's get this going. So I'm going to start with the positive stuff first, looking at the win for English cricket with the game against New Zealand, first test at Lords, 150th test at Lords have hosted, a big event, and England really did come to the game positively, played a lot of good cricket. We know there was issues around the pitch, which I'll cover shortly, but the cricket that they played on the field, which isn't what the media is focusing on right now, understandably, but what they showed on the field was that we've just come from a negative Ashes series and we are going to fight. We've got changes in the squad, but we're not going to give up. We're going to continue to play good cricket, get results, and we're coming for that Ashes in 2027. That's the message that I think it gave. It was a big win. I know the pitch had a lot to do with the test ending early. I know that. And it's very clear. But a win by 115 runs, although conditions weren't in New Zealand's favour, you have to still remember both teams played on the same pitch. And a win of that magnitude after all the negative press leading into this summer is a big statement from them. Obviously, starting off on the first day, I think it was 16 wickets fell. Ridiculous day. Initially, when I saw that England batting just collapse, even Harry Brook, I know he scored 56, but New Zealand did drop 3 chances for him. So they could have been out even cheaper, maybe even for about 90. They could have lost all their wickets. But that then we saw straight after when New Zealand came into bat, their wickets fell very quickly as well. And yes, the pitch was rated unsatisfactory for the first time in Lord's history. A lot of variable bounce to deal with, as well as lateral movement, which batsmen can't really help. It's sort of luck of the draw. I mean, we saw the first ball of the day that Ben Duckett faced to bounce below his knees, and Ben Duckett, not being the tallest man, when it's going below his knees, it says a lot about the pitch. But that is, I think there were a lot of worries at the start of the day that, oh my God, England haven't turned up to this test, and it's another collapse, another issue with the batting. And we're seeing the England that we saw in the Ashes again, and nothing's going to change. But that story did flip. They had New Zealand down for 12 for 4, or 20 for 5 actually, when Darryl Mitchell got out in the 10th over. And everyone saw that, hey, this is a pitch thing. But with both teams playing on the same pitch, which we know, and I think it was Stuart Broad who said this, you can only tell how good a score is once both teams have played on it. After the first day with 16 wickets down, being fallen, England definitely were the happier team, and overall at the end of the test match, they're not going to take much from the game itself in terms of how do we improve our batting, how do we improve our bowling, because the pitch was that bad. but it was such a big win for them, and they needed a big victory desperately following all the negativity in the summer. And that's what they should take from it. The other thing I took from the test is that they didn't just go to the short ball when they were in trouble. I know there wasn't many times where they were in trouble with the ball, but even in the New Zealand's batting innings, the first one where Emilio Gay comes in at short leg and he nicks it straight up in the air. Williamson nicks it straight up in the air and he takes that catch off Ollie Robinson's bowling. It just shows that they have a lot more up their sleeve when in terms of bowling and field changes and tactics when they're in the field. Not just, we're going to bowl to start off with and then go to a short ball, which I've said many times that it seems like they're the only two options that England have, or third option, give Stokes the ball and he'll find a way, which isn't really anything very tactical, giving your best bowler the ball. It's just, if that doesn't work, then what do you do? Like, you have no three options are working, and you just struggle. And a team like Australia, like they did in the Ashes, are just going to score a load of runs throughout the whole day, and essentially beat you straight there and then while you're struggling. So I think there's a lot to take away from this game in terms of what we saw from England. But unfortunately, the big nature of this win with the news should be focusing on Ollie Robinson's bowling, Atkinson's bowling, Emilio Gay's good batting, the fight that they had out there. That's all been wiped out, and now the whole story is about Ben Stokes and his nightmare in Chelsea at Wrexham's with Gus Atkinson straight after. And it's a shame, really. I mean, first of all, Ben Stokes should be a leader in this dressing room, and he shouldn't be getting himself into any of these incidents at all. If you're unaware, the incident I'm talking about is Atkinson and Stokes went to a nightclub after a game, breaking the midnight curfew. They had a security guard with them, and as the Times tells it, now that we have what we think is the full story, they got into a fight with a Saracens rugby player, Tatoa Arufa. I don't know how to pronounce his name, sorry. But he threw a punch at Atkinson, which ended up hitting the security guard. The security guard ended up on the floor, and I mean, Stokes and Atkinson didn't directly get involved and start swinging punches afterwards. We don't know what caused that fight in the first place, but it brought light to the fact that they broke their curfew. They shouldn't be out, and it negated all of the comments that Rob Key was trying to say before during the build up to the summer, that there isn't a drinking culture in this squad, and that's completely gone out the window. We've seen too many instances now with it was Ben Duckett, who was flat out in Noosa, completely drunk, didn't know where he was. There was Harry Brook, who they tried to hide that one, where he fought a bouncer in New Zealand, ended up with a 30k fine, and that story ended up being dug out by some of the fans, and they had to release statements to the public. And now there's this one with Stokes and Atkinson. And yes, I know it was a long time ago, but this isn't Stokes' first incident outside a nightclub where he punched someone a long time ago, 2018 I think it was. He had a 1-year ban before that World Cup in 2019. And then he was given his captaincy afterwards, saying that it's all behind him and he's a changed man. And although he isn't directly involved in the incident here, or as far as we're aware, he's not, as a captain, you shouldn't be breaking these curfew rules. You shouldn't get involved in incidents like this and have the chance for people to even criticise you in this way. It's not about his form, which would be reasonable criticism. It's not about something that's happened on the field with, I don't know, poor results or something like that. Again, reasonable criticism when you're the captain. This is something which it goes beyond that. And off the field incidents shouldn't be something that, as a captain, you should be bringing to the team. And especially with all the talk, as I've said many times, all the talk before this test match was England have had a bad Ashes, England are in the bin, all of these should Baz and Stokes be sacked talk beforehand. England has a big drinking culture, which Rob Key has had to sweep under the carpet many, many times and insist that this doesn't exist. And it's all unfolding in such a way that no one can take anyone's comment seriously now. When drinking culture comes up, no one can deny that it exists anymore, because there's been way too many instances. And it's to the point where Brooke is vice captain, and with Stokes now receiving a ban for the next test, we don't know about the test after at Trent Bridge, but with Stokes receiving that ban, Brooke being vice captain, they can't give it to Brooke either, because they know that he's had an incident similar to this recently. So it would be hypocritical for them to give Brooke the captain's armband for one game, and they've had to give it back to Root, which I'm not saying is a bad thing. Root is a very good captain. His averages as a captain and as when he wasn't captain are pretty similar, so I don't think his batting is going to be faced by this. But ideally I don't think he would have liked to take on the captaincy again. I think he had moved past that point and wanted to just focus on batting again and didn't want to even think about captaining the side again. He'd just grown out of that role. But I don't think there's any other option. He is mature in front of the camera. So when the media do speak to him, I think he'll give mature answers. He's not someone who's been a part of this drinking culture in the past, as far as most people are aware. And he's one of the only players that have fully cemented themselves in the side. So there aren't many options other than Root, to be honest. And I do feel bad for him. I don't think he would have liked to be in this position. As I said already, he just wants to bat and enjoy his time playing cricket, keep breaking records as he's been doing recently, and just focus on keep scoring runs. But that has been taken away from him because his captain has done something stupid. Do I think Stokes should step down? That's another question. I think, as we've heard Nasser say he will be embarrassed about this. Again, we still don't know the full extent of the story. We're going off what the Times has said. If it turns out that him and Atkinson were more involved, I think he would have to step down as captain. But as of right now, it looks like everyone in the squad has a drinking issue. And without Stokes as captain, I don't see as many tickets being sold for these test matches, because he's got that fight mentality. He's always going to fight for England, and some of the things that he does on the field are just remarkable. And he is, I think, on his day, with England's best player, or him or Root, right? And there isn't much arguing about that. I personally don't think he should step down. I think a ban or a 2-match ban, whatever the ECB decides in the end is, I think that's reasonable punishment for this. I'm not going to talk about whether I think the curfew should be there or not. I think with all the drinking there, I can't argue the fact that if they've tried to put a measure in place, whether it's the right one, look, I think that's a completely different discussion. But if it is the nature of the incident that it has just been the Saracens lad who's got a bit out of control punched the security guard, and Atkinson and Stokes weren't fully involved in it. I think Stokes should keep going as captain. I would love to keep going until the Ashes. I think he is England's best man for the job, and I think he is also there willing to fight and correct the mistakes that he's made in the past on the field in terms of results, and he wants to keep pushing this England team to do better. And I think he can do that, and I think he is the man to do that. So look, I personally think he should stay in his role, but I do think these incidents have to stop. It's 1 minute they're trying to portray positive cricket on the field with Brendan McCullum, but then that's being overclouded by all the negative press constantly. And whenever they do something well, they do something negative straight after to completely wipe that out, and none of the focus is ever on the positive stuff. And that is a big worry. You want your fans on your side. And at times, I think they're making it very difficult for the fans to stay on their side with the things that they're doing off the field, which it's just a shame, really, and that should not be the case. So let's see what happens in the next 2 tests. They do need to win. Root as captain, that is the bigger news. And will Stokes stay as captain? Hopefully, but I guess we will see. Moving on to the pitches, this is another worry. I think the England pitches have not been very good. They haven't been relayed in a very long time. And this is something that was spoken about on Sky Sports during the test. Now we know that ICC have said the pitch was unsatisfactory, handed a demerit point to Lords, which is their first ever one. But Lords still have big matches to host in this summer. They've got the ODI against India. They've got some of the women's World Cup matches. There's obviously the 100, and I think they can't let the pitch quality slip again. They've got to somehow keep it going. They don't have enough time to relay the pitch. If they did relay it, it would take the pitch out for 2 years or a year while they are relaying it itself, and then another 2 or 3 years for the ground to settle. So I think the earliest it would be back is 2029 or 2030, which is a long time for your biggest cricket ground in Lords to be out. And I don't see them doing that. There is talk about them growing a pitch on the side and dropping it in, similar to how they did it with New York in the T20 World Cup in 2024. That is very possible. Look, I'm not a groundsman. I don't know how these things work. But something does have to change, not just at Lords, at all the English grounds. They haven't been relayed in a very long time, and the pitch quality is just going to keep dropping if they don't do something about it. Maybe they have to cycle some of these pitches around so some of them aren't being used for some time, or they do this drop-in thing, which I have no idea will work. I think especially at Lords where there's a slope, I'm not sure how that will drop in correctly. But hey, let's see what happens. But this is something that desperately needs to be changed if they want good quality matches. It's interesting to see how Ben Stokes and the other English media speak about it, because in the past when they've gone to Australia and had a bad pitch like this, or gone to India and had a bad pitch like this, they've complained about it completely, whereas when Ben Stokes spoke about the Lord's pitch to the media, it was, I think test matches that favour to the ball are quite nice, and that also makes for a good test match, which flips the script completely. So there does need to be some consistency when they talk about it. I understand they're not going to speak negatively about their own pitch, but I think then they can't speak negatively about the others that they play on in the same conditions as well. So there does need to be that level of consistency too. But yeah, let's see how the other two tests unfold. Looking forward to them, and England do really need to win to brush this negative media under the carpet yet again, and they need to now stick to these curfew rules very strictly, because I think another breach this summer is, I think, a lot of things may unfold where people aren't allowed to play in the test team, people receive big bans, big fines. I think that may be the ECB's last straw in keeping someone like Rob Key there, Brendan McCullum, who's unable to keep the team under control. So hopefully it doesn't result to that. I think it would be a shame for English fans and other cricket fans who want to be able to see the English cricket team at its best to make for good test matches on TV, and we don't want that to be stopped by things happening off the field. Now moving on to India's test against Afghanistan. What a test it was. Great batting on show for India, and brilliant bowling on show too, to show why they are still one of the test giants, despite losing some test matches recently, and to keep their test match form going. I think for some of these players, they still needed to prove that they are trying to cement themselves in this new side, despite it being against a weaker opponent, and show that they're able to perform with the bat or ball. And I think it was a great test for pretty much everyone. Everyone performed to a very good standard. Maybe apart from Jaiswal, who only scored 24, but I think he's someone who's pretty much cemented in that side anyway, and sometimes these scores happen. 24 isn't awful. I think if you got out for duck or something, obviously not great. But KL Rahul scoring 100, brilliant for him. Still people questioning whether he's the right man to be at the top of the order because he's unable to get them big scores. And I think it's just unfair criticism that this is something that typically gets brought up when he doesn't bat well. And people say, we should be looking for another opener. Rahul is unable to score big scores. He stops at 100. He can't get 150. But why complain when someone is able to get to 100 pretty consistently? He's been batting really well recently in Test cricket, and why should it be a problem when he's only able to score 100? I think it's just getting a bit silly. I know we want people to score very, very big scores, and it does affect his average, because when he does score the big scores, they're not as big as they could be. And something maybe changes in his mindset when he does get to 100. I mean, we saw him play a very silly shot when he got to 100 against Afghanistan, getting caught. And it's just against his normal batting rhythm, where he shows so much patience batting for, I think it was 5 hours to get there, and then just throwing it away a little bit silly. But I don't think we should be complaining about his performances. I think he's scoring a lot of big scores, and I think it's just harsh criticism that he's facing, and we shouldn't be focusing on that. I just think it's a bit unfair when someone's performing to still be criticising them. Sai Sudarshan scored 81. Slightly disappointed he didn't get to 100. I think this was an opportunity for him to show that he can score really big scores in Test cricket, having sort of failed recently. His Test cricket scores not being great, but obviously performing very, very well in the IPL. But we know that T20 does not translate very well to Test cricket. So it was whether he could show that he is still able to do well with a bat in Test matches. 81 not being a bad score at all. I think it was just an opportunity for him to show that he is the right man for the side. Obviously, Gambhir saying before the test that he wants to give Sai a proper opportunity in Test cricket, and he doesn't feel like he's done that yet. So I do think he will be playing a few more Test matches regardless. I think for Sai, he just needs to focus on just keep going with these big scores, keep this momentum going, which I think he has the ability to do it, to be honest. I think in that first series that he had against England, it was a very high pressure situation. Not played Test cricket beforehand, before that, at an international level, of course, and international cricket is very different from domestic cricket. So, representing your country, I think he very much can cement himself as number 3. I think he just has to keep proving that he can get these big scores and keep batting well. But Gill, oh my god, what an innings. 126. And as a captain, he showed he is Mr. Reliable with the bat. If we look at his averages, his average as captain is 89, I believe, which is ridiculous. And then you look at his average when he bats at number 4, which he is now, and he started batting at number 4. At number 4 when he took over the captaincy, and his average is 88.75. So that is just ridiculous. High score of 269, which he scored in Edgbaston. And he is just flying and showing why he is the person that can be relied on in this India Test setup with the bat. And yeah, I think he's just going to keep going, keep scoring big. And there's nothing to really worry about with him there. This batting lineup does look very, very good, and constantly keeps performing. But what the problem has been in India cricket, Test cricket recently, is that they get to winning positions and they throw it away, and they just have to make sure that they don't do that, because they are all performing to a good level. Question marks around number 3 with Sai Sudarshan for sure. But other than that, Jaiswal, Rahul, Gill and Pant, who's been very good in Test cricket, but there's just been questions about whether he's mature enough. That top 5 is very, very good in terms of quality, and they just have to keep going with these scores. On Pant, he scored 81 as well, showing that despite a poor IPL, he's going to keep performing in Test cricket. Again, I said T20 cricket does not translate to Test cricket, which a lot of people keep saying it does, and a lot of selectors keep going back to the IPL when they want to select a new player for Test cricket. But they keep proving on the field why it doesn't translate very well. But the big story of this test is Manav Sardar with the ball, ridiculous. In the first innings, picking up 6 wickets, it's just unbelievable. 10 maidens in his 22 overs, almost 50% of his overs being maidens. Bowling an economy of 1.5. In your debut test, that is unbelievable figures. If someone said that to any bowler before the test started, this is how you're going to perform, you'd rip their hand off for it. And he has shown that he could cement himself in this side. And hey, he could, still early days. Following this test, he signed up for Warwickshire to play in the county championship. And I think that's good, showing that he is looking to commit to Test cricket, and he wants to cement himself into that India side, which, if he keeps performing like this, there's no reason why he can't. And yeah, I think he is a wonderful bowler. He can play with the bat as well, scored 23 as well with the bat. So I don't see why he can't be that potential Ashwin replacement. Obviously, big shoes to fill. Ashwin being the best spinner India probably ever had in Test cricket. There's not too much arguing there. And I think that maybe he could do that. Who knows? Let's see what happens. But overall, big win, kept the momentum going, shown that they're not gonna just throw away winning positions against smaller sides as well, and shown that they are a Test cricket giant. As for Afghanistan, I think at times it sort of looked like they just lost fight in the game. I know it's hard when a team scores a very, very big score against you. And I know they don't play many Test matches either. But I think this was a big opportunity for them to show that they can be a Test nation. I'm not saying that they can't. I think they have to just keep getting out there and playing more Test matches, which ultimately isn't completely up to them. They have to find teams that are willing to play them, etc. There's a lot more logistics to it. But if they do keep trying to play Test cricket, there was some promising stuff in the field as well. And they could cement themselves as a Test side, if they keep playing, sort of like Zimbabwe are, playing a lot against the big nations, trying to show that they're worthy of being a full member nation. And I think the same goes for Afghanistan in terms of if they keep playing against these sides, there's nothing to say that they can't be a Test cricketing nation. So, hey, not too much to say on them, but overall, I think it was a very enjoyable Test match to watch. I know it was a big win, but it was still very good cricket on display. Now to talk about the Women's T20 World Cup, which starts on Friday. World Cup being held in England. Massive T20 World Cup. 12-team tournament for the first time, showing that the game is rapidly growing, which we know it is in women's cricket. Audience sizes are meant to be the biggest ever for a Women's World Cup. And they think the records are going to be challenged, which is a great thing. And the commercial investment that they've had this year is significantly higher than it was before. England hosting it, the last time they hosted it in 2017, they won. Can they win it again? I think they can. I think the gap now in Australia is significantly lower, significantly smaller. Australia, obviously, in the past, much bigger than most of the other women's cricket teams, but that's not the case anymore. New Zealand are the champions at the moment in terms of T20 World Cup. India have just won the ODI World Cup, and they'll be looking for success again. England have the home advantage, as I've said, and they would love to win it again at home. And Australia are just the women's cricket giants, and they are definitely going to be challenging and cause a lot of problems to everyone else. So a lot of storylines here. Personally, I think England will win this one, having the home advantage. I think it will keep them going throughout the tournament, and they will be there aiming to play their best cricket throughout, and I think they're going to be very tough to beat. But as I said, India having just come back off an ODI World Cup win, they're going to try and win it all. One thing about this World Cup, despite a lot of the stories being around it being one of the biggest ever, it doesn't seem like it's been marketed so. I was watching the overlap the other day with some England cricket's biggest names, where they talk on their podcast about all things cricket, and a lot of them said that this was about a month ago that it was filmed. A lot of them said that they hadn't seen much of a narrative around this World Cup being built up, and had they not seen it pop up for a couple of seconds on Sky Sports as an advert, they wouldn't have even known it was going on. which is surprising. You'd expect these big names to know, like Alistair Cook, to know that this is going on. Obviously, this was a month ago, but there should be much more of a build-up around a World Cup with a month to go, especially with 6 months to go. It should have been a whole year, this being built up, and I think the crowds could have been even bigger that way. Everyone in England, everyone loves their cricket. They're going to come to these games and they're going to support their nation. And even for the games where England aren't playing, I see a lot of big crowds turning up. Had it been marketed properly, I'm not saying that it hasn't been marketed at all. I think they just could have put a bit more effort into it. But look, regardless, I think this is going to be a great World Cup. Is the timing correct for it? I think with them wanting to grow women's cricket as much as they can, I think they could have tried to do a little bit better, pushing it later on into maybe August or something like that. I know there's some issues there with the 100 then being the big tournament at the time, and it's not the easiest thing to plan tournaments in cricket where there's so many other domestic tournaments and series and things going on. But with the Football World Cup being the big World Cup at the moment and the event where most eyes across the world are on, I think had they pushed this World Cup a little bit further back, the viewership could have been a lot higher. So yes, it's a hot take, I know that. But look, I think there's a lot of people looking forward to it, as I am. And I think when it kicks off on Friday, it'll be a great tournament to watch. And let's see who takes it home. And as I said, I think England will be taking home one World Cup this summer, and I think this is the one. Now, moving on to the Football World Cup, slightly different segment from what we normally talk about on this podcast, focusing mainly on cricket, but I'm a big football fan, and with the World Cup starting tomorrow at the time of filming, I thought it'd be great to talk about it. Obviously, a lot of political issues around it being held in the US, not going to focus on that, but hey, it's a World Cup, it's going to be big. Who's going to win? I personally think it's going to be France. Most people have either France or Spain being the country to take it home. But how far do I think England can go? I think, do I believe in Thomas Tuchel that much? I'm not 100% set on him, to be honest. Yes, he's had much more success as a manager compared to Gareth Southgate. I think that he'll have much more of an influence on the players, but I just don't think the squad is still strong enough to compete with the likes of Spain, France, even Brazil. I know there's not been that much talk about Brazil this year, but I still think there are other much stronger nations. I think England can get far. I think they can maybe take it to the semis, but I still don't see them winning it, to be honest. And I see there's still a big gap between the size of the squads that England have and France have. You look at who France have on the bench, it's just ridiculous, the quality that is in that squad. So, look, let's see what happens. Let's see who wins the World Cup in a month's time. Hopefully England do take it home. It'd be great to see the scenes on the streets if they do. Be a massive party over here, and I'd love for that to happen. And I think for that to happen, Harry Kane will have to be at his best, scoring goals as aggressively as he did in the Bundesliga this year. There would have to be a lot of fluidity in the midfield, fighting against big midfields of Portugal and France and Spain, who look like they would control possession a lot better. But we need to show that we have the legs to just keep going. I think we have a problem if Reece James doesn't stay fit throughout the whole tournament. If he's fit, brilliant right back. If not sure if Livramento can do a great job there. I think Nico O'Reilly will be massive at left back, running up the field. He can score big goals when needed, as we've seen him do for City this year. Question marks over Saka's fitness. Long few seasons for him, to be fair. Is Madueke good enough to fill that position? I mean, we've seen that throughout the season that he's able to get himself in the right areas. He's good one-on-one, but then it's his clinical finishing which lets him down. And England do need someone who's going to score goals other than Harry Kane, because on the wings, which I think we're going to rely on a lot, with Harry Kane being a striker who sometimes does drop deeper, and let's say it is Rashford and Madueke with Saka's fitness issues running up and down, they're going to go past Harry Kane at times, and I think they're going to need to show quality to be able to get the ball back in the net themselves, and not just rely on Kane to be the goal scorer in this squad. The goals are going to need to be shared a little bit as well. It is tournament football, and at the end of the day, in a big tournament like this, you can't just rely on one person to score all the goals. Let's see what happens. I think England can make it to the semis. I think they're going to struggle against the likes of France and Spain, but let's see what happens, and hopefully England can bring it home, because it would be a wonderful moment.